rereading new books. Today, this is Bhagavad Gita. Might not be pronouncing that correctly. This is one of the, it is the most revered book in Hinduism. And as I read, it's partly an orientation practice for me, my speech and such, but I'm also learning as we go. And I find a lot of the things I read to be quite profound. So I read a bit slowly, so it won't be difficult to keep up. It's my first time opening this book. I do believe I have another copy of it somewhere, like that I found recently. Well, you might go to help me out with some of the pronunciations and such. On the back, it says, "This secret is the king of all secrets, the most profound knowledge and deeply purifying. It is the topmost rung of Dharma for self-realization." And that's a quote from Lord Krishna. Sriharishra. I'm gonna butcher a lot of these pronunciations. Forgive me in advance. After assembling at the sacred ground of Kurukshetra and desiring to fight, what did my sons and Pandu's sons do, Sanjaya? Sanjaya said, observing the formidable formation of the Pandava army, Prince Dordyan turned towards his guru and spoke these words. "O Guru, do you see the excellent military arrangement of the Pandava army, led by none other than your very own gifted disciple, the son of Drupada? Their army is powered by heroes like Bhima and Arjuna and mighty warriors that match their skills, namely Yudhana and Virata and Drupada. Let's not forget powerful fighters like Drishtektu, Chakatana, and Kashi Raja, while Purijit, Kanti Boja, and Sabya are heroes too in society. They also have the worthy Yadahamanyu, the mighty Uttamajas, and the son of Sadhadra, and the sons of Drupada, all superior fighters. Now also hear about the distinguished heroes and generals qualified to lead my army. It has personalities who have never lost a battle, like you, Grandfather Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, and Vikarna, and also the sons of Sambhadada. There are many more in my army who are experienced in military warfare with expertise in using multiple weapons. Moreover, they will not hesitate to sacrifice their lives for me. So clearly, our strength is fathomless as compared to the limited strength of the Pandavas. We are in safe hands under the protection of Grandfather Bhishma, unlike the Pandavas who also have Bhima to protect them. I call upon the entire Kaurava army to give utmost support to Grandfather Bhishma throughout the battle. What followed was a loud blowing of the conch by Grandfather Bhishma, the eldest of the Kuru dynasty, sounding like a lion's roar and gladdening the ear of Duryodhan. The Kuru army then sounded its conches, kettle drums, trumpets, bugles, and horns, creating a huge uproar. From the Pandava camp, Madhav and Arjuna blew their divine conches from their glorious chariot drawn by white horses. Hrishikesha blew his conch, Panchajanya. Arjuna blew their Devaduta. Must be some fascinating instruments. Bhima, who ate voraciously, and performed great tasks, sounded his mighty conch. You know, voraciously and veracity are very similar words, and if you confuse them, it doesn't reflect good on you. One said, your dog is eating with great veracity with a dog that I was watching. And I meant to say voraciously. Well, veracity only calls into question like its credibility and such. Son of Kantu, King Yudhishthir sounded the Anantija, while Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Sangoshi and the Mani Pushpak, respectively. Those sound like some interesting instruments. So, after blowing their conches were the supreme bowmen, the king of Kashi, mighty warrior Shikhandi, Drashyama, Virata, and the invincible Satyaki, together with King Drupada and sons of Draupadi, and the mighty armed sons of Sabhadra. The resultant sound vibrations thundered across the sky and earth, filling the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra with fear. I'm having fear in pronouncing some of these names. Arjuna, the son of Pandu, bearing the insignia of Hanuman on the flag of his chariot, raised his bow in preparation to fight. Looking over the army's formation and Dhritarashtra's sons, he spoke to Hrishikesha. Clearly, there's a lot of fighting taking place in this region. Do take the chariot in the middle of both armies so that I can have a good look at those assembled here to fight and compete with me in this battle, O unfailable one. I must see all those who want to fight me and support the wicked sons of Dhritarashtra. If only we could, as a people, commit to creating more than competing. Peace more than fighting. Hopefully we'll get to that in this book. This is my first time reading it. Complying with the instructions of Gadakesha, one who has conquered sleep. Hirikesha, one who has conquered all senses, pulled the magnificent chariot to the middle of both the armies. Pointing to Grishma, Drona, and the kings of the world, Krishna said, O Partha, look, the Kurus are all gathered here. And both armies, all Arjuna could see was fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, companions, in-laws, and well-wishers. Seeing only the presence of relatives on the battlefield, Katiyuva was overcome with compassion and spoke. O Krishna, my limbs are trembling and my mouth is drying up at the sight of my very own friends and relatives here on the battlefield, ready to kill each other. Me too. My body is shuddering, my hair is standing on end, and Gandiva, my bow is falling off my hand, and my skin burns. O Keshava, killer of Keshi demon, my mind is reeling in confusion. I see only bad omens bringing misfortune. How can there be any merit in killing my own Keet, and kin. O Krishna, I have neither a desire for winning this battle, nor a desire for kingdom, nor for happiness. What is the use of a kingdom or enjoyment in life if those who we want to share it with are present in this battle itself? O Govinda, teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, grandsons, father-in-laws, grandnephews, brother-in-laws, and other kinsmen who have put their lives and wealth on stake here. I refuse to kill them. O Madhasudan, even if they attack me, leave alone earth, even if you give me control all of the three worlds, I will not fight. What pleasure is there in killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? I ask you, Janardana? Oh, Madhav, killing them will be committing a sin. Nothing justifies killing the sons of Dhritarashtra and our own friends. Does happiness lie in killing our own family? I agree that these people motivated by greed see no harm in killing us. They're friends and family, but Janardana, we need to not commit the same sin as them, being fully aware of the crime. Irreligious practices increase when dynasties get destroyed and family traditions are lost. With irreligion, women become immoral, producing unwanted children. The unwanted populations make existences a living hell for one and all. Even ancestors are doomed, being deprived of sacrificial offerings of food and water. The net result is destruction of all dharma, whether related to family or community, merely by the evil act of breaking cultural traditions. Oh, Janardana, I have heard from learned sources that those who mess with family traditions are condemned to hell eternally. How ironic that we ourselves are trying to commit the sinful act of killing our own family, and for what we simply enjoy kingly pleasures. I would rather die unarmed and without any resistance when attacked by weapons of the sons of Dhritarashtra on the battlefield. Sanjaya said, with these words, Arjuna put down his bow and arrows and sank to the seat of the chariot with a heart overflowing with grief. The true star of my channel. Lord Madhusadan addressed Arjuna, who was wallowing in pity and shedding tears profusely. Srihar Bhagavan said, from where have these weaknesses come, O Arjuna? That too at this hour of danger, it does not befit an Aryan like you. An Aryan. Is this saying Aryan? Like you, who has lived a life of values. This will bring you neither good reputation nor heaven. Do not fall prey to this weakness, O Partha. O Paratapa, give up this unmanliness and rise to the occasion to fight. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, how can I possibly attack Bhishma and Drona? How can I shoot arrows at those who I have worshipped? Tell me, O killer of demons. I'd rather live a life of begging than killing my elders, my teachers, however covetous they may be. After killing them, worldly pleasures will have no significance tainted with their blood. Right now, I'm not even sure what is better, conquering them or getting conquered. I do not wish to live after killing them, yet they stand on the side of sons of Dhritarashtra in battle. I will be right back. Can you go out? O Madhusudan, how can I possibly attack Bhishma and Drona? How can I shoot arrows at those who have worshipped? Tell me, O killer of demons. I'd rather live a life of begging than killing my elders, my teachers, however covetous they may be. After killing them, worldly pleasures will have no significance tainted with their blood. Right now, I'm not even sure what is better, conquering them or getting conquered. I do not wish to live after killing them. Yet they stand on the side of sons of Dhritarashtra in the battlefield. Overcome by anxiety and weakness, I am confused about my duties. I surrender to you as you and your disciple. Please instruct me in my best interests. Winning a prosperous kingdom on earth or acquiring sovereign powers like that of celestial beings will not be sufficient to nullify the immense grief within that is drying up my senses. Like celestial is like of the stars, and we refer to stars on earth as celebrities. Sanjaya said, and then Arjuna said, Harikesha, O Govinda, I will not fly. There was silence after that. O King Harikesha then spoke smilingly to grieving Arjuna, right in the middle of both armies. Your words are wise, but you are lamenting for something that is unworthy. Neither for the living nor for the dead does a wise man lament. There was never been a time when you, or all of these kings were not in existence, and surely we shall all exist in the future too. Childhood, youth, and old age are simply phases in the journey of an embodied soul. The next phase is another body. There is nothing abnormal in this. Let me read that again. Childhood, youth, and old age are simply phases in the journey of an embodied soul. The next phase is another body. There is nothing abnormal about this. Interactions with sense objects lead to experiences of joy and sorrow, which are temporary as the seasons summer and winter that will continually come and go. O son of Kunti, you must adapt to them, tolerate them without losing your balance. O descendant of Bhirata, if one is wise enough to tolerate dualities to whom joy and sorrow are one and the same, he becomes qualified for eternal life. O Arjuna, the best of men, that which is temporary is not the ultimate reality, because the ultimate reality is unchangeable and indestructible. This is the conclusion derived by wise who has pondered onto the subject at length. Imperishable and indestructible, that is the nature of the soul which pervades the body. And physicists say that energy cannot be controlled or cannot be destroyed nor changed. It can only transform and change forms. It can't be destroyed. That's what physicists say. What can be destroyed is the external body housing the imperishable, so body temporary, soul eternal, an indestructible soul. O descendant of Bharata, arise and fight. In ignorance, one may think that a soul may slay another soul, or a soul gets slayed by another soul, but in truth, the learned know that the soul neither kills nor is killed. There is no birth or death for the soul, nor does it ever cease to be. It is birthless, ageless, eternal, without a beginning or an end. Even with the destruction of the body, the soul is not destroyed. Knowing the soul to be birthless, deathless, and indestructible, how will you kill anyone, or how will anyone be killed, Partha? Just as we discard old worn clothes, the soul casts off worn out bodies to enter a new body at the time of death. A body is for the soul, clothes are for us, or shells for hermit crabs. The soul cannot be wounded by any weapon. It cannot be burnt by fire, nor moistened by water, nor can it be blown away by the wind. The soul cannot be broken, burnt, dried, or dissolved. It is eternal, unalterable, immovable, and indelible. It is without a beginning. Knowing that the self is invisible, inconceivable, and unchangeable, you should not lament for the body. Even if you wish to believe that the self undergoes constant birth and death, there is still no reason to mourn for it. O mighty armed Arjuna, because those born will certainly die one day, and those who die will certainly be born again. Why then grieve over it? I have the Bible also, and we will also read the Bible. I need chapstick, probably more hydration. It's very hot where I'm at. Thank you for the suggestion. Evil. Good comment. Because those who born will certainly die one day, and those who die will certainly be born again. Why then grieve over it? All created beings are unmanifested before birth, and after death they manifest only during life. Why then grieve over it, O descendant of Bharata? For some, the soul is amazing to see. For some, it is perplexing to hear, and for some, it is a mystery when described. No one has really been able to decode the soul as of yet. Do not grieve for any living being, because the soul dwelling within the body is immortal. As a warrior, your duty is to fight without fear. There could be nothing more righteous for a Kshatriya than to fight against injustice and adharma. Could you imagine if you were a military general and you had an army and nobody wanted to kill? Right? I would also tell them that don't worry about killing them. They're going to come back to life in another body. That's just, if I had to. If I was put in that position, my army won't fight. That's what I'm telling them. Not to disparage it, but okay. Fighting a battle opens the gates of heavenly abode for warriors, O Partha. An unsought opportunity like this should make you happy. If you still refuse to fight this dharmic battle, you are sinning by not performing your duty. You will lose your reputation too. People will call you a coward. Dishonor is worse than death for a respectable person like you. Brave warriors who revere you now will assume you left the battlefield fearing for your life. They will lose all respect for you. I shall be right back. Duty calls. She needs to be let in. Your enemies will humiliate you, even question your abilities. Could there be anything worse than that? If you die while fighting, you will experience pleasures in heaven. If you win, you will experience pleasures on earth. It's a win-win situation. So stand up, O Karthenya, and fight the battle with determination. And if you fight because it is your responsibility, disregarding joy, sorrow, profit loss, victory, or defeat, then there is no sin incurred either. I have just shared with you the wisdom of Sankhya Yoga, and also known as analytical knowledge. Now hear well as I tell you about Buddhi Yoga. O Partha, this wisdom will free you from the bondage of karma. Following the path of Dharma will never go to waste. It will never hamper your progress, whereas even a little advancement will save you from many dangers. The path requires resolute determination and focus. If intelligence is irresolute and multi-branched, you will get distracted. The Vedas advocate rituals by an appealing play of floral words. Men of scanty knowledge get attracted to it and do not look beyond that. For such people, their only goal is to material desires and wealth, heavenly planets or good birth, or power which they hope to achieve through Vedic rituals. It seems Dharma good and Veda bad. That's what I'm getting so far. This is my first time reading this, and reading it is my first orientation to it. Such strong attachment to worldly powers and sense gratification weakens their determination, and they lose out on a path of God. Sense gratification. Anything instantly gratifying tends to not be the way. Vedas revolve around the three modes of material nature, the gunas. But you, Arjuna, you have the rise above the gunas. You have to free yourself from complexities of the material world and be fixed on the self alone. Find within so you can live without. Just as the big lake can minimize the importance of just as a big lake can minimize the importance of a small well, so does the knower of absolute truth, proficient in scriptures, serve better than Vedas. Although you are eligible to perform your duties of Kurishra, you have no right to the result of that action. Remember that you are not the cause of that result, and still you cannot shy away from the work. Oh, Dharnanjaya, fix your mind on duty without any thought of the resulting success or failure, and achieve the steadiness of yoga. Choose to act on the basis of disciplined intelligence rather than the desire for enjoyment. Only the miserably cling to the fruits of actions, O conqueror of wealth. O conqueror of wealth. Therefore, practice yoga, the art and science of working without attachment. Only that can free you from good and bad reactions. So, working while not being so attached to the result. It'd be like if I made a song and didn't care what people thought of it. Endowed their yogic wisdom, the wise decline the fruits of their actions which bind them to the cycle of life and death. Thus liberated, they find peace and freedom from suffering. Emerging from the forest of illusion, the intelligence becomes detached from what it has been heard. What will be heard? What has been heard and what will be heard. Not excited by floral words of the Vedas, the intelligence is fixed with spiritual trance, what is called the perfection of yoga. Arjuna said, O Keshava, how does one recognize such a person with a steady intellect and divine consciousness? How does he speak or sit or move? When one is in divine consciousness, one gives up all desires arising from the mind and finds satisfaction in free from desires, cravings for pleasure, fear, and anger. One's mind is tranquil. One is of steady wisdom, who is unperturbed by material desires and unaffected by joys and sorrows. Like a tortoise pulls his limbs into his shell, one keeps his senses under one's control. Often, one may keep the senses under control, but the taste of the objects of enjoyment will still remain. But one with divine consciousness loses the taste of such sensory objects, having acquired a higher taste. But the sensory objects, being immensely powerful, can even drag the mind of such a person who has the ability to discriminate ukantaya. The only way to maintain steady wisdom is to control your senses and absorb your mind in me. If you think about senses objects, it will lead you to an attachment of them. Attachment begets desires, and unfulfilled desires cause frustration and anger. Anger compounds delusion. Delusion leads to the loss of memory, which in turn destroys the power of discrimination. Loss of discrimination means loss of self, and fall into material consciousness again. Self-control over desires and aversion can attract God's grace. God's grace can end all sorrow, and the resulting peace fixes the intelligence on God. Only a disciplined person can control his senses and mind, have a clear intelligence, and contemplate on God. Without contemplation on God, there can be no peace, and without peace, there can be no happiness. And without economic freedom, there can't be social freedom. If the mind hankers for fulfillment of a desire, any of the wandering senses can carry away the intelligence as easily as the wind blows away a ship from its courses in sea. Only by withdrawing your senses from the sense object can you be fixed in transcendental wisdom, O mighty armed. What is darkness for the ignorant beings is daylight, a time of awakening. For those with self-control, what is daylight for the ignorant is the dark of night for sages who see. Just as the rivers enter the ocean cannot disturb the ocean in any way, desires entering the mind cannot disturb the steady mind of a sage. Peace comes to one who gives up all desires for self-enjoyment, gives up his ego, gives up greed as well as a sense of ownership. In this enlightened state of consciousness, one never gets confused again. O Partha, if one attains this consciousness at the end of the time of death, one gets liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and all suffering ends by entering the spiritual abode of God. So we're in chapter 3. This is Karma Yoga. You have another comment? Thank you for it. O Janardana, you say that the intelligence is superior to action, and yet, O Keshava, you goad me to fight the war. Why? My mind is perplexed and unable to decode your cryptic language. Can you not tell me in simple words which path to take? Sri Bhagavan said, I had mentioned earlier also that there is two paths to transcendental enlightenment. One is the path of knowledge based on philosophy and contemplation. The other is a path of work or action. Abstaining from work or physical renunciation is not the answer. Both are inadequate ways to divine enlightenment. Not for a moment can one live without action. Whether one likes it or not, one is compelled to act, influenced by three modes of material nature. It's possible that one restrains oneself but continues to think of sensual pleasures. He is not really inactive, but he is a hypocrite. Far better is one who controls his senses through the mind and engages in oneself in karma without attachment, O Arjuna. Choose to act. Choose to do your duties over inactivity, or not doing your duties. Without action, we cannot even maintain our own body. Remember the Kantiya, that to liberate oneself from the bondage of existence, action has to be done as a sacrifice to the Lord. All other actions are binding. So Arjuna, work without attachment. The creator of Prajapati blessed all mankind at the beginning of existence to perform sacrifices that would please the Lord and usher in prosperity. Sacrifices please the devatas, who then satisfy those who have performed the sacrifice. This reciprocation between God and mankind benefits all. When pleased, God supplies gifts that are necessities for life. But using these necessities without performing sacrifices and gratitude is as good as theft. Pious people habitually take food that is first offered to God, and by doing so they are relieved of their sins. But the wicked eat only for their enjoyment, and simply by eating they are sinning. Living beings are dependent on grains. Grains are produced by the rain. Rains are a result of performing sacrifices one does as prescribed duty. Grains in America tend to be grown with glyphosate as a deterrent for pests. And glyphosate's pretty bad, so if possible, have your grain imported from somewhere else, wherever that is. Prescribed duties to be followed are listed as Vedas, the sacred literature which is directly spoken by God. Thus, all sacrifices revolve around the absolute Lord. Ignoring the cycle of duties as given in the Vedas is a living of life of sin and irresponsibility. A life of sensual pleasure is a waste of life, Partha. However, the prescribed duties do not apply to one who is illuminated and felt fully self-realized. A fully self-realized person has no attachment to the results of prescribed actions. He has no motivation to perform them because he has nothing to gain or lose. So, perform your duties. Work without attachment to the fruits of your actions. Only this can lead you to the realization of God. This is how King Janak and others have attained perfection, by the actions without attachment to the results. You should also set an example for others by proper actions. I'll take a note here. Actions of a great man are followed by the world, and standards he set are emulated by the world. O Partha, even though I have no duties to perform in any of these three worlds, I still do my duties. Because, Partha, if I do not do my duties, people can use that as an example for not doing their duties. If I do not act dutifully, the world will suffer, and I will be responsible for that. There will be chaos, destroying peace for humanity, and all because of me. O Sayana Bharata, the ignorant act attached to the result of their actions, while the wise act without those attachments, thereby inspiring the masses. The wise should not confuse the ignorant, lest they stop work altogether. They should inspire them to act on their duties in an enlightened way. It is the three modes of material nature that perform all activities, but the ignorant, deluding himself to the body, thinks that he is the doer. O mighty armed Arjuna, a knowledge person knows all about the soul, karma, and gunas. He does not get entangled with attachments or self-gratification, but those influenced by gunas remain attached to the material objects and enjoyment. The wise should not perplex such ignorant souls. The answer to this diseased condition is to meditate on me and surrender unto me in full knowledge, free from desires, free from ego, and free from grief, and then fight. Practicing my teachings faithfully and without envy will bring freedom from karmic bondage. And those who do not follow my teachings out of ignorance and envy will live in bondage and misery for life. Both the wise and the ignorant act as per their nature. Nothing is achieved by suppressing one's innate natural tendencies. It is the senses which affect desires and aversions. Do not let them be in control, as they are enemies that block the path of self-realization. It is advisable to act according to one's own nature and duties, even if it is not done perfectly. It is still better than doing another's duty. Better to die while engaged in one's own duty than to be engaged in another path which is downright dangerous for the soul. So better to die in your own duty than it is to be engaged in another's path. Arjuna said, "What is it that makes one's act sinfully and improperly against his will, and if by an overpowering force?" And as if by an overpowering force. Sri Bhagavan said, It is lust, and lust alone, which is the biggest enemy of the whole world, a product of the mode of passion. It eventually transforms into anger. Excessive desire can cover mind's clarity, just as smoke covers fire, dust covers a mirror, and wombs cover a fetus. Even the wise and learned are seen to be covered by this force of lust, which is insatiable like a raging fire, overwhelming the embodied soul and clouding its knowledge. Lust takes charge through the senses, mind, and intelligence. O best of Bharatas, waste no time in controlling the senses and killing this sinful demon called lust that destroys knowledge and self-realization. The senses are superior to gross objects. The mind is superior to the senses. The higher than the mind is, the intelligence, the superior to the intellect stands the soul. The soul, being superior, can control the material senses, mind, and intelligence. O mighty armed Arjuna, use spiritual power to destroy the unconquerable enemy known as lust. We're now into chapter 4. I taught this eternal yoga science to Visavan, who shared it with Manu, and Manu passed it on to Ishvaku. The supreme science in this way was handed down to kings in continuous tradition, but Arjuna, with time, the link was broken and the yogic science get lost. Today I'm revealing to you the same ancient science of yoga. It is a secret that you, being my friend and devotee, are qualified to hear and understand. How is it possible that you instructed Vivasvan when the fact is that Vivasvan was born long before you? Sri Bhagavan said, O destroyer of enemies, both you and I have taken many births before. I remember them all, whereas you do not. I am the controller of all beings. Although I am birthless and eternal, yet I appear in the material world by the power of my energies. Whenever there is gross decline in dharma and escalation of adharma, I appear myself, O descendant of Bharata. I appear in every millennium to protect the pious, to destroy the wicked, and to establish dharma again. O Arjuna, he reaches my spiritual abode and does not take birth again in this world. If he sees divinity in my birth and activities, many have reached me in my past by surrendering to me, being free of attachment, fear, anger, and their mind absorbed me and purified in fire of knowledge. In whatever makes people surrender to me, I reciprocate accordingly. O son of Pritha, whatever the circumstances, everyone is the path only. Everyone is on my path only. Those who desire material success in the world perform sacrifices and worship devatas. It is easier to achieve material rewards from them. The 4 socio-religious divisions are created by me. The division is based on the 3 gunas and karmas, and though I am the creator, I am eternal and transcendental to all. 4 socio-religious divisions. 4. I am not affected by any action, nor do I desire the fruits of action. Just understanding this truth about me will free one from karmic bondage. Ancient seekers of liberation knew this and performed actions. You should too. Follow their example and perform your duties. What is action and what is inaction? And is a most confusing subject. Now hear my explanation on what action is all about. Free yourself from the bondage of sinful reactions. Even the wise are confused in understanding what is prescribed. Wrong action and inaction, karma, is deeply profound and a mystical subject. The wise can identify action and inaction, and inaction. They are yogas who have mastered their actions. Such a wise person is a sage who acts without any desires, and his karmic reactions are burnt in the fire of knowledge. Detached from the result of action, he is always satisfied and independent. He is active without any fruitive activity. He is in control of his mind and intelligence, with no perception of possession, performing only necessary actions that incur no sin. He is content, free of envy and duality, steady in success and failure. Thus, he is free of karmic reactions even when constantly engaged in work. He who is detached and firmly in transcendental knowledge is released from all karma and is himself transcendental. For one whose thoughts are completely absorbed in God, all his offerings, and all of his spiritual nature, it is easy for him to attain God. Some prefer to make material offerings to the Vedas, while a few sacrifice themselves in the fire of the Supreme. In the fire of the controlled mind, some sacrifice their sense of hearing, while some sacrifice objects of sense of gratification at the fire of senses. Some offer the function of their organs and vital air in the fire of self-control. Some sacrifice their wealth in charity, some offer austerity, some follow Ashtanga yoga, and some take vows to study Vedas and cultivate knowledge. Some practice breath control by sacrificing inhalation until exhalation and exhalation unto exhalation and exhalation unto inhalation. Some restrain both inhalation and exhalation to reach a state of trance, and some give up intake of food, sacrificing their vital force. Such sacrificial acts have the power to cleanse impurities. Enjoying the sacrificial remnants, they attain the supreme abode. O best of the Kurus, without a life of sacrifice, it's impossible to be happy in this life, leave alone in the next. The Vedas describe different sacrifices suitable for different categories of work. Know them and be liberated from material bondage. O conqueror of enemies, O Partha, higher than material sacrifice is sacrifice performed in knowledge, because the work concludes with transcendental knowledge. The wise who are self-realized can impart these truths to you if you approach them with humility in a mood of submissive curiosity and genuine service. Enlightened by a guru, you will be free of all ignorance and see all living beings as sharing a common spiritual core, being in me, a part of me, O son of Pandu. This boat of transcendental knowledge can help you cross the ocean of material existence, however big a sinner you may be. O Arjuna, just as a fire burns wood to ashes, so does knowledge burn away all karmic reactions. Nothing is more purifying than the divine knowledge. A mind purified by yoga receives this knowledge with time. Faith and self-control leads to success in this endeavor, and once successful, one attains everlasting peace. The faithless, doubting the scriptures, perish eternally. They remain lost, finding happiness nowhere in this world or the other world. One becomes free of karmic bondage. O Dharmanjaya, when one renounces fruitive action, dispels doubts by knowledge, and is self-realized. O Sayano Bharata, slash your doubts with the sword of knowledge, and stand up once again to fight equipped with the yogic knowledge. Chapter 5. O Krishna, you suggested renunciation of action first. You followed up by encouraging practicing karma yoga. Which, any ambiguity, please tell me which is the better of the two. Both paths, I suggest, lead to the supreme goal, but the path of karmic yoga, or action without attachment to the result, is better than renunciation of action to acquire knowledge. A karma yogi is considered to be renounced because he is free of desires and aversions pertaining to the result of action. Free from all material bondages, he attains liberation easily. It is ignorance to believe karma yoga to be different from Sankhya yoga or contemplation. The wise know that they are not different from each other, leading to the same destination. Only a person with clarity of vision understands this. Karma yoga and work and renunciation are one and the same, yielding the same result with the same destination. But renunciation of work in the absence of karma yoga or work and devotion is difficult. Only when one practices work and devotion does one easily attain the absolute almighty armed Arjuna. With the help of karma yoga, one purifies the senses, the mind, and the intelligence with which self-control. He feels compassion for all living beings. Although continuously working, he is free of all entanglements. A person of not consciousness knows that he is not the doer. A person of such consciousness knows that he is not the doer. Even when he sees, hears, touches, smells, eats, walks, sleeps, breathes, talks, evaluates, he knows that he is not him. That it is not him, but the material senses that are doing this by interacting with sense objects. He is free from sinful reactions of work, and if he dedicates his work to the Supreme God and works without any attachment, just like the lotus leaf that is untouched by water, even when surrounded by it. A karma yogi still acts using his body, mind, and intelligence only to get purified, although he has no attachment to his work. A karma yogi who has dedicated his work to God and renounced the result of his actions gains peace, whereas those who work without dedicating their acts to God, motivated by their own desires, get entangled. With this kind of detachment, the embodied soul lives happily in the city of 9 gates, neither being the doer nor the cause. It is factually the modes of material fruits of those actions. It is not God who is responsible for pious or wicked deeds. It is the responsibility of the living being who is conditioned by the material nature and covered by ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed by true knowledge, God is revealed just as the sun heralds visibility in the daytime. Absorbed in God with faith and intelligence, fixed in God with sins, destroyed by knowledge, he takes the path of liberation when there is no rebirth. A Brahmana, a cow, a dog, and a dog eater are all the same for a man in knowledge. The vision of the equality and impartiality helps conquer the cycle of birth and death by sharing the qualities of God. Men in knowledge are in transcendental situations themselves. Both transcendental and fixed in God, they are free of delusion and unaffected by pleasure or pain. Rejecting external sensual pleasures, they find joy within. Uniting with God, they find infinite happiness. O Kantia. Pleasure coming from sense organs is actually a source of pain. I've been telling people this, that when we are engaged in acts of pleasure, we're actually experiencing pain, but we have like a wired brain that throws out chemicals to make you not experience that. I see that most of the questions about human nature can be found in the animal kingdom, and we know that cats are experiencing great pain while they're procreating. Being transcendental and fixed in God, they are free of delusions and unaffected by pleasure or pain. Okay. O Kantiya, pleasure coming from sense organs is actually a source of pain. The wise do not care for them because such pleasures have a beginning and end soon. Only by tolerating the agitations arising from desires and the anger can one become happy. He alone is a yogi. A yogi is happy within himself. He sees God within himself. He is flooded with self-enlightenment. He attains liberation from material existences and unites with God. He is free from sin. He has no doubts. He is self-controlled and engaged in welfare of others. He is liberated and attains God. He renounces anger and desires. His mind is under his control. He is self-realized. He gets liberation in this world and the next. Purging out thoughts of sensual enjoyment, concentrating between the brows, equalizing the breath and inhalation and exhalation, controlling the mind and intelligence, giving up giving up desires and fears. This is the way to liberation. Only when one understands I am the enjoyer of the end result of all sacrifices and austerities, I control everything in this world and I am a friend to everyone. Only then peace is attained. And that concludes chapter 5. And we will start with chapter 6 later. I'm feeling the amount of vocalization in my throat, so I'm going to give it a break. And hopefully I will have a capacity to read more in the future, like a throat workout or something. So this has been Bhagavad Gita. Might be pronouncing that wrong. I probably pronounced a lot of this wrong. Eventually, we will read some Tibetan Book of the Dead. We will read more of the Quran. And we will get to the Bible too. And the Torah. I intend to read all of the sacred texts to you. And for myself. Thank you for tuning in. And much love to you. Wishing you all a fulfilled and meaningful day.